Okay. And since we're kind of on this topic, man, it kind of sounds like you just went back to the 1950s and you're just like some little subservient little housewife, just being like Mitch's little like slave there. What?
Do you know what's so cool? I was like thinking about how amazing my day is the other day. I was on a phone call with Kian and I was like, what we're creating is happening so much faster because of the responsibility that I'm taking. And it's so satisfying to be doing what I'm doing, because it's like when Mitch is like out of the office for a couple hours because he's out on a presentation or something, right? I'll like go into his office and I'll be like, okay, what is the best way to set his office up so that he can be most productive? And so I'm like vacuuming and I'm disinfecting the table. I'm taking any extra stuff out of the room. I'm airing it out with the window open and the fan on. I'm taking the mail that's accumulated and I'm going through all of it and I'm writing on the outside envelope like exactly what he needs to do with each piece of mail, and I'm throwing away the other mail, and I'm like, just like doing all this stuff, right? Getting all set up so I know like when he gets back, like he is going to make money. He is going to be productive and he's going to provide for our family. And I'm like, that is so satisfying. Like he would not have done that. He would never take the time to do that, and it would only stress him out to do that, and he wouldn't be able to do it. Like he just wouldn't be able to do it. But I'm so satisfied by doing that. Are you kidding me? Like that's so fun. And just like leaving the space like perfectly set up for him, I'm like, and then I go and like do that somewhere else, and like I love it. I love going about my day and setting us all up for success, and just
what's fascinating about that is like you'll have women argue that is slavery, okay? And then they'll be like, then they'll go get a job working for some corporation.
Yeah, that's slavery.
Where it's like
women
but none of what they're doing actually benefits them directly, other than just having some money. They're not having any other purpose whatsoever.
Yeah, but by you doing those things at home, he can bring in more money. So it is valuable. It is.
But how do you reconcile the point of it has to be everything 50-50?
It is 50-50.
What I mean is people say like, well, he should be doing 50% of the dishes and you should be making 50% of the money and all that.
Yeah, but biologically, women experience stress 4 times as much as men. And putting that into a structured work zone. Okay, when I clean and go about my day isn't completely structured, like out this. No, I'm like flowing around, doing all this stuff, and I'm getting it all done at how it'll fit throughout this day, because I have to be flexible, because like accommodating for him and like all this stuff. So like women can multitask, okay? Men cannot multitask. And like people will say, well, then that's good. You can use that in the workforce. Okay. No. So for me, I haven't come to the complete conclusion of like the exact reasons and specific like biologic like justifications of why it's better to be at home. But from just my personal experience of doing this, I experienced so much more fulfillment, like creating an environment for success for him working so he doesn't have to do anything at home than I ever did owning and running my own company, okay? And being in multi-level marketing companies, and for sure having to go and clock in at a job. That was the worst, the epitome of it, because I thought, like moving my way up and having my own multi-level marketing company and owning my own business, I would then have that freedom that I now have working at home. Like I thought like that would create that freedom for me, but it didn't, because I still was having to have a certain amount of structure and do things a certain way for it to all work. But here at home, I don't have to listen to anybody else. I don't have to meet a quota. I don't have to do something that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's like, I know every single thing I'm doing is supporting Mitch and me. And eventually, like when we have kids down the road, like it'll support the kids. It'll support, and ultimately, since it's supporting us and what our starting point and what we're doing, like with the businesses, I know it's supporting the world by me just doing these things here at home. And so it's at first, okay, I'm not gonna lie, like it sounds like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. Like I just like was super hype about it right away. I understood that it was necessary right away, but for the first 2 weeks, I was so stressed. I was so fucking stressed. I had stress ulcers popping up. It was like, I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, I just feel like I'm not providing as much. Like maybe I need to go get a part-time job. And I just was like really stressed. I was honestly really stressed about it. And so I had to, you know, at first, Katie, actually, Cameron, your wife, gave me some good advice. Like at first, I had to give myself the, like the praise, like the good job. Like at first, after every single little thing I did, I had to say, Jessica, that was awesome. Like, you're incredible. Like, good job. Like, that was adding value to our day. Like I had to literally give myself that after every single task I did, so that I eventually saw like, wow, you're doing a lot. And this is actually adding a lot of value. And so now it's not a point that I have to say anymore in my mind of like, you know, giving myself those affirmations. I don't have to do that anymore. But at first I did. I had to give myself that until I understood the value. And I can see now that every little thing I do is making love real, is adding value to what we're doing, is like every little thing I do, like that would be the same thing as like every little thing you would accomplish at a job, except this is for something that's so much better than that. It's for supporting.
Well, you know, what's interesting is a lot of the people who would maybe argue against the perspective you're bringing forth would also argue that the woman should, you know, be in the workforce and having a career. And I would assume those same people I know would be on the side of the system is all fucked. So it's like, how do you, I'm not asking you personally, but how does a person reconcile the fact that you think the system has all these problems, but a woman's freedom is within being in that system? It's like, in other words, if you look at more like the leftist sort of anti-capitalist perspective, it's the same perspective that's also saying women shouldn't be at home working with the kids and doing all this stuff. They should be having careers. And it's like, as capitalists, like, what the fuck are you saying? And so it's like, the argument that women have to be equal to men and the only way to do that is for them to have careers is like, that's just saying they're equal slaves. Because a man with a career
it's propaganda. It's propaganda that's also, it's also like putting the mother, like it's telling the mother, your life is more valuable than the lives of your children who don't even understand what life is yet.
Talk about that.
Because
is that something you realized before going to this, or did you have inklings of that, or is that something you've had to like face, or
inklings of leading up to something that I've really now understood is like the woman wanting to go back to her job. Like I have a friend who I met in college. I'm still in like this group chat, and so I still get the messages, but I'm not really a part of it. But I just like sometimes check in and read what's happening. And this one of the girls in the group had a child, and they immediately in this group chat asked if she was getting paid leave or not, and when she was going back to work. And I was like, that's the first thing you think about? Like, it just blows my mind that these women want to give away the responsibility of developing their child effectively as soon as possible. Yeah. As soon as my child can physically survive without me, I want to go back to work. What? Are you kidding me? You just birthed this being into existence and you want to abdicate the responsibility of its development to someone who wasn't even developed properly? What? Yeah. Like, it's literally insanity. And it's
and then
selfish.
argue that the patriarchy is the problem.
No, you're the problem because you didn't develop your child in the right way, and your mother was the problem because she didn't develop you in the right way. And that's been consecutively happening for the last 20 years since the education, or 20 generations since the education, education system that's in place now is there. And that has taught you to continue the exact same thing that we're doing. Like, it's all connected, but I think fundamentally it goes back to the mother not having been developed properly herself to then be able to develop another being properly from the very moment that they're born.
It's what I said earlier too about people don't know how to do anything. Women don't know how to be mothers. It's
Which
not
is
something that,
and they don't want to
something
face
you just
that.
know
they
how to
face
do.
the consequences of not knowing how to do it either.
Right.
And so they
Totally.
just give it away. They give away the responsibility. And then when their kids come home and the few times that they are there, they just react to the child. And they just tell them,
Where did you learn that from?
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, well, not only that, but it's like when they ask questions and they just say, oh, I don't know. Or stop asking questions. Go do this, or go watch TV, and just let yourself be programmed. And now people's natural learning, if you don't know what natural learning ability is, it's like putting a child in China at 3 months old for 18 years. Are they gonna be speaking English, or are they gonna be speaking Chinese when you go see them? Okay, now take an adult who's 38 years old and put them in China, and 18 years later, it's not assured that they'll be speaking fluent Chinese. That's because their natural learning ability isn't open anymore. That's what that is. And guess what? That's closing earlier now, because children aren't even using their natural learning ability because they're being suppressed. They're being told, don't use your natural learning ability. Don't ask questions. Like,
And they're filling it up with social media and games and all this other shit.
Exactly. And then they get plugged into a school system that just tells you how to memorize information. And it doesn't really do an effective job of that.
It's really cool that
Why do we have a system that we have?
Yeah, it's really cool. You're looking at these, you're bringing these points up. I think we should probably do a whole episode just on these points, because there's a lot of, again, I always like to bring this point up. One, I think because it'll appeal to that point within people where they want to be special and unique, but it's like, we're not looking for everybody right now. We're not. Like, we know that the only thing that's going to help everybody is a system. So we're the anti-revolutionaries. Like, we're saying we have to go be in the system and change the system. That's how we're going to change this world, changing the system. But then we have
undercover agents.
Yeah, we have to equalize ourselves to it then. That means we have to become good at making money. We have to become good at communicating and persuading. We have to then take responsibility for raising our children and educating them. Mm-hmm. Because if you just put them to the system, they're going to get dumbed down. That's why my children are so intelligent and so effective and so emotionally stable, is because we're taking that responsibility, but we're also taking the responsibility within ourselves using those tools, right? And it's really cool watching you walk this process, because you're also much younger, right? And you're starting much younger than Katie and I did. And by the time you and Mitch do have children, even if it's in the relatively near future, you're going to be so much more prepared to be able to support them, because you'll have your finances sorted out. So you'll be stable with that. You'll also have the stability of, you're not going to have to walk through all of the, for lack of a better term, feminist programming that you're now walking through. And I'm sure there's things that come up, but Katie had to walk through all of that stuff. You know, and again,
I'm 22, by the way, not 20. 22. I'm 22.
So just so everyone's clear, it's like in our house, if the dishes are sitting there dirty because for whatever reason someone didn't get to them, and I see that, and I'm not engaged in something, I'll go clean them up. It's not like that's not the man's role. There is no, I'm a man, therefore it is not my role. It's more like
I tell Mitch to do the dishes sometimes.
Right.
I ask him to unload the dishwasher. Just today, before the podcast, I put lunch in the oven, and I was like, Mitch, can you take this out of the oven and bring me a portion up? I have to go prepare for our podcast upstairs, because I saw he had gotten home from what he was doing, and he was just doing some stuff at the table, and he was working, but I knew he was in a position that he could support me in that moment to do what I do to support him.
So there's no men's role, women's role, but you can. It's cool hearing you, because for yourself, I remember we had a conversation about it. It was kind of like, well, what if you didn't work in the business directly, but you did these things? And you were like, actually, that would be really cool. And so we're not saying, none of us, I don't think you're saying this, I'm not saying this. And Katie always says to me, she's like, I don't think all women necessarily should have children. Like there are many women or some women who would want to go and create something. Like she brings up like these doctors, like Suzanne Humphreys and Mikovits, and like these women who are like, they're basically scientists, and they like really go into something and they create it, and they never have children, and they bring value to the world. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But that's not the issue I see with it. Is there's so much programming that'll take a woman who would theoretically be better suited and very effective at raising children and doing all of those things, rather than going and being a scientist and doing the more like what we would normally consider masculine type qualities. But then because of environmental factors and programming, she will be brainwashed into doing something that she's not best suited for, just from a physical.
But do you see how this has belittled the men's ability to effectively do what they do?
Explain.
Because now, women can come and do what we do just as well as us. Like that, I feel like there's a point in there where it's like, it's disempowering for the males. It's like, wouldn't you want to set it up so that the male would use his testosterone and his leadership and his like all these things to, build these structures that are fundamentally supportive, and then the women work within that structure, and like at home, like I do the little nitty gritty parts of the home while Mitch provides for the home to be there, you see? And so it's like within the workforce, when the men are there, like creating these structures, and then you try and have the women go in there and be alongside.
What immediately happens is the women say, everyone is sexually harassing me. And then all the men are gone.
The men are using their testosterone to get the job done. Of course, their hormones are firing while they're at their job. And as soon as they see a woman, they're like, ooh, there's a woman here now. And I'm not saying that everybody necessarily has that cognitive experience, but biologically, you are excreting your testosterone. You are working. You are like building these things. Like, of course, if you put a woman in that environment, there's going to be men that act on that. But
isn't it also the case that since it's a competitive environment, because you're competing for the promotion, isn't it a possibility that the woman can utilize that as an advantage over the men? Meaning, every man would be afraid to be competitive with her. Versus two men being competitive, it's like it's just we're fighting.
But there also is a distraction competitive point of who in the office will be able to get with the one woman that's in the office.
Yeah.
So there's like so many dynamics there. And it's like, wouldn't you want the men to focus? Wouldn't you want them to be effective? Wouldn't you want them to support? Wouldn't you want to support them to get the promotion? Well, in order to do that, you need to not be there. You need to let him focus. It's like women just, they're like a parasite. They've become a parasite where before they were like the nurturer and they created and developed life. And now it's the opposite. Now they're feeding off of the structures the men created to support their abilities. And they're not even taking responsibility of their own children. It's like, what? It's crazy.
And see what we're suggesting is having an environment where nobody has to do anything out of survival. So that a woman who wants to go and explore developing something or building something can do that. But if they have children, they have the ability, resource-wise, time-wise, everything, education-wise, access to resources and so forth, to provide the best environment. And that the men can then go and do the things that they need to do or want to do as a point of creating value in this world that's best for everybody. But
this is why a revolution is not enough, because that will not create a system that promotes this to be able to happen.
If we're being honest with what this revolution is, okay, maybe this will get us finally deplatformed once and for all.